bear cub was sinking in a puddle of tar. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The rain pounded against the windows of Olivia Reed's small cabin, each drop a tiny drummer announcing the arrival of the worst storm Pine Hollow had seen in decades. Olivia clutched her 6-month-old daughter Luna to her chest, feeling the baby's tiny heartbeat flutter against her own. The wind howled through the trees surrounding their isolated home, branches scraping against the roof like desperate fingers seeking entry. "It's okay, little one," Olivia whispered, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. "Daddy will be home soon." But even as she spoke the words, Olivia glanced at her phone. No service, no messages, no sign of her husband Marcus, who had left that morning for supplies before the roads became impassable. That was 8 hours ago. Luna whimpered softly, her big blue eyes wide with an understanding that seemed impossible for her age, and sometimes Olivia swore her daughter could sense emotions better than most adults. The baby's tiny fingers gripped her mother's shirt, holding on as if she too feared what might happen next. A crash from outside made Olivia jump. She peered through the rain-streaked window, but saw only darkness punctuated by lightning flashes that transformed the familiar forest into a grotesque landscape of twisted shadows. Something was moving out there, something large. "Please be Marcus," she whispered, bouncing Luna gently to keep her calm. The power flickered once, twice, and then died completely, plunging the cabin into darkness. In the sudden silence between thunderclaps, Olivia heard a sound that made her blood run cold, a low, pained whimper that was definitely not human. Luna squirmed in her arms, suddenly alert, her little head turning toward the door with startling precision. The baby made a soft cooing sound, so at odds with the storm's violence that Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. "What is it, Luna? What do you hear?" Another flash of lightning illuminated the yard, and for just a moment, Olivia saw an enormous shape dragging itself across the muddy ground toward their porch steps. A wolf, massive and gray, its fur matted with something dark that the rain couldn't wash away. Olivia gasped and stepped back from the window, her heart hammering against her ribs. Wild wolves rarely approached human dwellings unless desperately hungry or injured. This one seemed to be both. Luna didn't cry out in fear, as Olivia expected. Instead, the baby reached toward the window, her tiny fingers splayed against the glass, her eyes fixed on the struggling creature outside. The wolf collapsed at the bottom of the porch steps, its body heaving with labored breaths. Lightning flashed again, and Olivia saw what the darkness had hidden. A metal trap clamped viciously around the animal's hind leg, the chain dragging behind it like an anchor, leaving a dark trail in the mud. "Oh, God," Olivia whispered, torn between compassion and fear. The wolf wasn't hunting. It was dying. Luna began to fuss in her arms, not with fear but with a strange, insistent urgency. The baby's eyes never left the window, her little body straining toward it as if pulled by an invisible force. Thunder cracked directly overhead, shaking the cabin's foundations. In that same instant, Olivia's phone lit up with a text message, breaking through whatever interference the storm had caused. "Marcus. Road washed out, staying in town. Are you both okay?" Olivia's fingers trembled as she typed back, "We're fine. Be safe." She wasn't fine, not with a dying wolf on her doorstep and her husband miles away. But what choice did she have? The storm made travel impossible, and the wolf would be dead by morning if she did nothing. Luna whimpered again, more insistently this time, her tiny face scrunched with determination. The baby had never acted this way before, and something about her daughter's focused intensity made Olivia pause. Another flash of lightning, another glimpse of the suffering animal. Its eyes were open now, staring directly at the window where Olivia stood, at Luna. There was pain in those wild eyes, but something else too. Something that sent a shiver of recognition through Olivia's body. "This is crazy," she whispered to herself, even as she moved to the closet to retrieve the first aid kit in Marcus's toolbox. Absolutely crazy. But as the thunder rumbled again, softer now, more distant, Olivia knew what she had to do. With Luna securely strapped to her chest in a baby carrier, she pulled on her raincoat, took a deep breath, and reached for the door. The wolf watched them approach, too weak to run, too desperate to fight. Its eyes never left Luna, who had gone surprisingly quiet, her tiny hand reaching out from the carrier toward the injured animal. "Please, don't let this be a mistake," Olivia prayed as she stepped into the raging storm, the door closing behind her with a finality that made her question everything she thought she knew about the natural world and about her extraordinary daughter. Rain pelted Olivia's face as she carefully descended the slippery porch steps. The wolf's breathing was ragged, its massive chest rising and falling in uneven bursts. Up close, the animal was even larger than she had thought, easily over 100 pounds, with thick gray fur now darkened by mud and blood. The steel trap had bitten deep into its hind leg, the metal teeth cruelly embedded in flesh. The chain attached to the trap had caught on branches and undergrowth, leaving a trail of destruction through the forest floor that told the story of the wolf's desperate journey. "It's okay," Olivia found herself whispering, though she knew it was absurd to speak to a wild predator as if it were a frightened pet. "We're going to help you." The wolf's amber eyes remained fixed on Luna. There was intelligence in that gaze, pain and fear, yes, but also a profound awareness that sent chills down Olivia's spine. Luna made a soft gurgling sound, her tiny hand still outstretched, fingers opening and closing as if trying to reach the injured animal. Lightning flashed again, closer this time, and thunder followed almost instantly. The storm was directly overhead now. Olivia knew she had only minutes before the heaviest part of the deluge would hit. She needed to work quickly. She set her toolbox down and knelt in the mud, just out of the wolf's reach. The animal tensed, a low growl rumbling in its throat. "Shh," Olivia soothed, her heart hammering so violently she was certain the wolf could hear it. "I know it hurts." To her astonishment, the growling stopped. The wolf's ears flattened against its head, its gaze still locked on Luna, who was making soft cooing sounds, almost like she was singing. With trembling hands, Olivia opened the toolbox and removed a pair of heavy bolt cutters. Marcus had bought them last year to cut chain-link fencing when they were building Luna's play area. She'd never imagined using them for something like this. "This is going to hurt," she warned the wolf, feeling ridiculous for explaining her actions to a wild animal. "But then it will be better." The wolf's eyes flickered to her face, then back to Luna. It seemed to understand, or perhaps it was simply too weak to fight. Olivia positioned the bolt cutters on the chain attached to the trap, as far from the wolf's injured leg as possible. The metal was thick, designed to withstand an animal's desperate attempts at freedom. She squeezed the handles with all her strength, gritting her teeth with the effort. The chain resisted, then gave way with a sudden snap that sent Olivia tumbling backward into the mud. The wolf flinched, but made no move to run or attack. It simply laid its head down, its eyes now half closed with exhaustion. "That's just the first step," Olivia said, pulling herself upright. The hard part comes next. The trap itself would be more difficult. Its teeth were buried deep in the wolf's flesh, and removing it would cause intense pain. If the animal lashed out in agony, both she and Luna would be in grave danger. As if sensing her thoughts, Luna began to fuss. Not with fear, but with that same strange urgency she'd displayed earlier. Her tiny face screwed up with concentration. She made a sound that was almost like humming. A single, sustained note that rose and fell with the wind. The wolf's ears pricked forward. Its eyes opened fully, fixing on Luna with an intensity that was almost human. Then, slowly, deliberately, it dragged itself closer to Olivia, extending its injured leg toward her like an offering. "This isn't possible," Olivia whispered. But the evidence was right before her eyes. The wolf was cooperating. Somehow, impossibly, Luna was communicating with it. Lightning split the sky again, followed by a thunderclap so loud that Olivia felt it in her chest. The rain intensified, coming down in sheets now, reducing visibility to mere feet. They were running out of time. With shaking hands, Olivia examined the trap. It was an old design, illegal in most states now, a steel contraption with serrated jaws and a powerful spring mechanism. She found the release lever, rusted but still functional. "This will hurt," she warned again, "but I'll be quick." She pressed down on the lever with one hand, using all her body weight. The jaws of the trap loosened slightly, but not enough to free the wolf's leg. She needed both hands, but that would mean setting down the toolbox she'd been holding as a potential shield. Luna made that strange humming sound again, louder this time. The wolf whimpered in response but remained still. Its trust so absolute that Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes, mingling with the rain on her face. "Okay," she whispered, setting down the toolbox. "Here we go." With both hands now, she pressed down on the lever. The trap's jaws slowly opened. Blood welled freshly from the wound as pressure was released, and the wolf let out a high, thin whine of pain. But it didn't move, didn't snap at her, didn't try to flee. "Almost there," Olivia grunted, muscles straining. "Almost." The trap suddenly gave way, the jaws springing fully open. Olivia quickly pulled it away from the wolf's leg and tossed it aside, where it landed with a metallic clatter on the porch steps. The wolf's leg was a mess of torn flesh and exposed bone. The wound would need cleaning, antibiotics, proper medical attention, none of which Olivia could provide here in the rain. But at least the animal was free from the trap. "We need to get you inside," she said, knowing how insane the idea was. Bringing a wounded wild predator into her home, with her baby daughter, during a storm, with her husband miles away. It was madness. But Luna's humming grew louder, more insistent. The baby squirmed in her carrier, her tiny body warm against Olivia's chest despite the freezing rain. The wolf struggled to stand, putting no weight on its injured leg. It swayed, then collapsed again, its strength finally exhausted. "You can't stay out here," Olivia decided. "You'll die." She glanced around desperately, looking for something she could use as a stretcher. There was nothing. The wolf was too heavy for her to lift alone, especially with Luna strapped to her chest. A strange calm suddenly settled over Olivia. She knew what she had to do, though she couldn't explain how or why. With deliberate movements, she unstrapped Luna from the carrier and knelt in the mud beside the wolf. "I'm trusting you," she said to the animal, looking directly into its amber eyes, "like you're trusting me." Then, taking a deep breath, she placed Luna gently on the ground beside the wolf's head. For one terrible moment, Olivia's maternal instincts screamed at her to snatch her baby back, to run inside and lock the door, to call for help. What was she doing? This was a wild predator, wounded and desperate. It could kill Luna with a single bite. But Luna didn't cry or fuss. Instead, the tiny girl reached out one chubby hand and placed it on the wolf's wet muzzle. The contact seemed to send a jolt through the massive animal. Its eyes widened, then slowly closed in what looked unmistakably like relief. Luna's humming changed pitch, becoming softer, gentler. The wolf's breathing steadied. And then, to Olivia's astonishment, the animal began to drag itself toward the porch steps, using its front legs to pull its body forward, its injured hind leg held carefully off the ground. It was trying to go inside. Shaking with cold and shock, Olivia scooped Luna back into her arms and followed. The wolf paused at the bottom of the steps, looking back at them with an expression that could only be described as expectant. "You want help?" Olivia realized aloud. She tucked Luna securely in one arm and used the other to support the wolf's hindquarters, taking some weight off its injured leg. Together, they managed the 3 porch steps, the wolf whimpering but cooperating fully. At the cabin door, Olivia hesitated. Once she let this creature into her home, there would be no going back. What would Marcus say? What if the wolf's behavior changed once it was inside? What if it was rabid or simply acted on instinct once it began to recover its strength? Luna's hand patted her cheek, drawing her attention. The baby's blue eyes were focused and clear, with none of the unfocused gaze typical of infants her age. There was a certainty in those eyes that stirred something deep in Olivia's memory, something she couldn't quite grasp. "Okay," she whispered to her daughter. "I trust you." She pushed open the door and helped the wolf inside, leaving a trail of mud, water, and blood on the wooden floor. Once the animal was fully in the cabin, Olivia quickly closed the door against the howling wind and rain. The wolf limped a few steps into the living room, then collapsed onto the rug in front of the cold fireplace. Its sides heaved with exhaustion, but its eyes remained alert, watching as Olivia moved around the cabin, Luna still in her arms. Using her free hand, Olivia lit several candles, bringing a warm glow to the room. Then she gathered towels, the first aid kit, and a bowl of clean water from the kitchen. Setting Luna in her playpen, positioned where she could still see the wolf, Olivia approached the injured animal with caution. "I need to clean your wound," she explained, keeping her voice low and soothing. "It's going to sting." The wolf watched her with those intelligent amber eyes, but made no move to resist as she knelt beside it and began gently cleaning the mangled leg. The damage was severe. Deep puncture wounds from the trap's teeth, torn muscle, possibly even a fracture. Without proper veterinary care, infection was almost certain. "We'll have to get you to a vet as soon as the storm passes," she murmured, applying antiseptic to the wounds. The wolf flinched, but remained still. "For now, this is the best I can do." From her playpen, Luna continued to make soft humming sounds, her eyes never leaving the wolf. The animal responded to each change in the baby's tone, ears twitching, eyes moving between Luna and Olivia, as if following a conversation only it could hear. After bandaging the leg as best she could, Olivia built a fire in the fireplace. The warmth slowly filled the room, and the wolf's rigid posture began to relax. Its eyes grew heavy, though it still watched Luna with unwavering attention. "You're safe now," Olivia told it, surprised to find she meant the words. Somehow, she was no longer afraid of this wild creature in her home. Rest. As if understanding, the wolf laid its massive head on its paws and closed its eyes. Within minutes, its breathing deepened into sleep. Olivia lifted Luna from the playpen and settled into the rocking chair beside the fire, cradling her daughter close. The baby's eyes were growing heavy too, the excitement of the evening finally giving way to exhaustion. "What just happened, Luna?" Olivia whispered. "How did you know?" Luna didn't answer, of course. She was just a baby. But as she drifted off to sleep in her mother's arms, her tiny fingers curled around a lock of Olivia's hair in a gesture that seemed oddly deliberate. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the cabin, an unexpected peace had settled. Olivia rocked gently, watching the sleeping wolf, listening to the fire crackle, feeling Luna's warm weight against her chest. Despite the strangeness of it all, she felt no fear. Instead, she felt a growing certainty that this night was only the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. Something connected to Luna, something wild and ancient and mysterious. Thunder rolled in the distance, softer now. The storm was moving on, but Olivia sensed that the real storm, the one that would change their lives forever, was just beginning. In the dark corner of the living room, beyond the circle of firelight, something moved, a shadow that seemed darker than the darkness around it. Olivia blinked, and it was gone. A trick of the light, surely, or her exhausted mind playing tricks. But as she gazed down at Luna's peaceful sleeping face, a memory stirred. A legend her grandmother had told her long ago, about children born during the winter solstice, when the veil between worlds was thinnest. Children who could speak to the wild things. Children marked by the old powers that still lingered in forgotten corners of the world. Luna had been born during last year's winter solstice, during the worst blizzard Pine Hollow had seen in a century. Olivia shivered, despite the warmth of the fire. She pulled Luna closer and glanced at the sleeping wolf. Its injured leg twitched in its sleep, and it made a soft whimpering sound. Without thinking, Olivia began to hum, the same strange melody Luna had produced earlier. The wolf immediately quieted, its breathing becoming deep and even once more. Olivia's humming faltered as realization dawned. She knew that melody. She'd been hearing it in her dreams since the day Luna was born, a tune she'd never heard before, yet somehow knew by heart. A tune her grandmother used to refer to as the calling song. She looked down at her sleeping daughter with new eyes, wondering what other secrets the tiny girl held, and who or what might answer when Luna called again. The fire popped and sparked. The wolf sighed in its sleep, and somewhere in the forest beyond the cabin, something ancient stirred, awakened by a song it had not heard in generations. Morning came with gentle fingers of light that stretched through the cabin windows. Olivia blinked awake, momentarily disoriented to find herself still in the rocking chair with Luna nestled against her chest. The events of the night rushed back. The storm, the injured wolf, Luna's strange behavior. She looked quickly toward the fireplace, half expecting the wolf to be gone, a creature of dream and exhaustion. But it was still there, its massive form rising and falling with each breath. In the morning light, Olivia could see that its fur wasn't simply gray as she'd thought, but a complex pattern of silver, charcoal, and cream. It was beautiful, in the way that all dangerous things can be beautiful, remote and wild and powerful. Luna stirred against her, tiny eyelids fluttering open. Immediately, the baby's gaze found the wolf, and a smile spread across her face. A real smile, not the reflexive expressions of most infants her age. She made a soft, chirping sound that was nothing like her usual morning babble. The wolf's ears twitched. Its eyes opened, amber and alert, finding Luna instantly. It raised its head, wincing slightly as the movement jarred its injured leg. Then, to Olivia's amazement, it made a sound back. A gentle whine that rose and fell in pitch, almost like speech. Luna giggled, delighted. She squirmed in Olivia's arms, clearly wanting to be closer to the animal. "Not yet, little one," Olivia whispered. "Let's check on our guest first." She placed Luna carefully in her playpen and approached the wolf with slow, deliberate movements. The animal watched her but made no threatening gestures. If anything, it seemed to be waiting patiently for her help. Kneeling beside it, Olivia gently unwrapped the bandages she'd applied the night before. The wounds looked better than she'd expected, still raw and angry, but not showing signs of infection. The bleeding had stopped, and some of the smaller cuts were already beginning to scab over. "You're healing quickly," she murmured, reaching for the first aid kit to apply fresh antiseptic and bandages. "But you'll still need a vet." The wolf submitted to her ministrations with stoic patience. Only when she accidentally pressed too hard on a particularly deep wound did it growl, a soft, warning rumble that made her freeze instantly. From the playpen, Luna made that strange humming sound again. The wolf's growl immediately ceased, replaced by a whimper that sounded almost apologetic. "It's okay," Olivia told them both, her hands resuming their gentle work. "We're all doing our best here." When she finished, the wolf tested its weight on the injured leg. It could stand, though it clearly favored the leg heavily. It wouldn't be running through the forest any time soon, but it was mobile enough to be dangerous if it chose. Yet Olivia felt no fear. The wolf moved carefully around the small cabin, sniffing at furniture and doorways, mapping its new territory. It paused at Luna's playpen, lowering its massive head to the baby's level. Luna reached out fearlessly, patting its muzzle with a delighted gurgle. "Gentle," Olivia cautioned, though she wasn't sure which of them she was addressing. Her phone chimed with a message. "Marcus. Roads still flooded. Town's setting up emergency shelter. How are you two holding up?" Olivia stared at the phone, unsure how to respond. How could she possibly explain what had happened? A wounded wolf in their living room. Their 6-month-old daughter apparently communicating with it. The strange melody that seemed to connect them all. Marcus was practical, rational. He'd think she'd lost her mind. "We're fine," she typed back, just waiting for the storm to pass. "Stay safe." She set the phone down and went to the kitchen to prepare a bottle for Luna. The wolf followed, limping but attentive, watching as she moved around the kitchen. When she opened the refrigerator, it perked up, nostrils flaring at the scent of food. "I suppose you're hungry too," Olivia realized. She took out some leftover chicken from their dinner 2 nights ago. "This isn't exactly what you'd catch in the wild, but it should help." She placed the meat in a bowl on the floor. The wolf approached cautiously, sniffed the offering, then began to eat with a restraint that surprised her. No savage tearing or gulping, just measured, careful bites. After feeding Luna and herself, Olivia carried the baby to the window to check outside. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape transformed. Fallen branches littered the yard. The dirt road leading to town was a river of mud, but the sky was clearing, patches of blue appearing between thinning clouds. "The vet's office is in town," she told the wolf, who had come to stand beside her at the window. "But I don't think we can get there yet." The wolf made no response, its gaze fixed on something in the distance. Olivia followed its line of sight and felt her heart skip a beat. At the edge of the forest that surrounded their property, a dark shape moved between the trees. Another wolf, this one even larger than her house guest. "Is that?" she began, then fell silent as a second wolf appeared, then a third. They stood at the tree line, partially obscured by the underbrush, watching the cabin. "Your family came looking for you," Olivia whispered. The wolf beside her tensed, but made no move toward the door. Instead, it looked at Luna, who was watching the distant wolves with bright-eyed interest. Luna began to hum again, that same haunting melody. The wolf beside them joined in with a soft howl that matched the baby's tune perfectly. From outside, the waiting wolves tilted their heads back and answered, their voices blending into a chorus that made the hair on Olivia's arms stand on end. "What are you telling them?" she asked softly. The melody continued for another moment, then faded. The wolves at the forest edge sat down, still watching, but making no move to approach or leave. "They're waiting for you," Olivia realized. "But you're not ready to go yet." The wolf turned from the window, limping back to the spot by the fireplace. It settled down with a sigh, resting its head on its paws, eyes fixed on Luna. "What's happening here?" Olivia asked aloud, though she expected no answer. "What are you?" Luna babbled happily in her arms, reaching toward the wolf with grabbing motions. Olivia hesitated, then moved to sit on the floor near the animal, placing Luna on the rug between them. The baby immediately crawled toward the wolf, who watched with what could only be described as tenderness. "Be gentle with her," Olivia warned, ready to snatch Luna back at the first sign of danger. But the wolf only lowered its head, allowing Luna to pat its fur and grab handfuls of its thick ruff. The baby seemed delighted, making the chirping sounds that seemed reserved just for the wolf. And the wolf responded with soft whines and gentle licks to Luna's tiny hands. Watching them together, Olivia was struck by a memory so vivid it made her gasp. Her grandmother, sitting by the fire in her own cabin deeper in these same woods, telling stories of the old ways, of the people who had first lived in these mountains long before settlers came, of their beliefs about children born during the winter solstice, children who carried pieces of the wild within them. "Such children are bridges," her grandmother had said, her wizened face serious in the firelight. "They understand the language of the trees, the wind, the wild creatures. They remember what the rest of us have forgotten." "Remember what?" Olivia had asked, no more than 7 or 8 herself at the time. Her grandmother had smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "That we are not separate from the wild. That the borders we build are illusions. That there is only one world, and we are all part of its song." Olivia had forgotten those stories, dismissed them as the fanciful tales of an old woman clinging to outdated superstitions. But now, watching her daughter and the wolf, she wondered if there might be truth in them after all. A movement outside the window caught her attention. The wolves at the forest edge had been joined by others. 5, 6, 7 of them now, all watching the cabin with patient, golden eyes. "The pack is growing," she murmured. The wolf beside her raised its head, following her gaze. It made a soft sound in its throat, not quite a growl, not quite a whine, something in between. Luna, hearing it, stopped her playing and turned toward the window. Her little face grew serious, her blue eyes focusing with that uncanny intensity Olivia had noticed the night before. She began to hum again, but this time the melody was different, faster, more urgent. The wolf tensed, struggling to its feet. It limped quickly to the window, pressing its nose against the glass. Outside, the waiting pack had gone rigid, ears forward, tails straight. "What is it?" Olivia asked, scooping Luna into her arms. "What's wrong?" The wolf turned to them, its amber eyes wide with what looked unmistakably like fear. It limped to the door, scratching at the wood with one paw, then looked back at them expectantly. "You want out?" Olivia said, confused. "But your pack is right there, and your leg," the wolf barked once, sharp and insistent. Luna squirmed in Olivia's arms, making urgent sounds that mirrored the wolf's anxiety. Okay, Olivia said, moving to the door. "But I don't understand." As she reached for the doorknob, a sound reached her ears that made her blood run cold. Engines. Multiple vehicles, moving fast along the muddy road that led to their isolated cabin. She peered through the window and saw them. 3 large trucks splashing through the puddles, their tires caked with mud. Men leaned out the windows, something in their hands catching the morning light. Rifles. The wolves at the forest edge melted back into the trees, vanishing like smoke. But Olivia knew they were still there, watching, waiting. "Hunters," she whispered. "They're hunting your pack." The wolf whined, pawing at the door more frantically now. Luna began to cry, not the normal fussing of a hungry or tired baby, but deep, heart-wrenching sobs that shook her tiny frame. Olivia's mind raced. These men, they must have set the trap that caught the wolf. They must be tracking the pack, perhaps had been for days or weeks. And now they were here, right outside her home, armed and dangerous. What would they do if they found an injured wolf inside her cabin? What would they think of a woman harboring what they would see as a dangerous predator, with her baby daughter right there in the same room? The trucks were getting closer, the sound of their engines growing louder. The wolf paced anxiously by the door, its injured leg almost forgotten in its distress. Luna's cries had stopped as suddenly as they'd begun. She was humming again, the urgent melody rising and falling like a warning. The wolf stopped pacing and looked at the baby, then at Olivia. Its eyes seemed to plead with her. "You want me to help your family," Olivia realized. "You want me to stop them. But how?" She was one woman with a baby facing armed men. Marcus was miles away. There was no one to call for help. The local sheriff was probably with the emergency shelter in town. The wolf limped back to Luna, gently nuzzling the baby's hand. Luna grabbed its fur, her humming growing louder, more insistent. And as Olivia watched, something extraordinary happened. The wolf's injured leg began to tremble. The bandages Olivia had carefully applied slipped, revealing the wounds beneath. Before her astonished eyes, the torn flesh began to knit together. The swelling receded. The angry red of inflammation faded to pink, then to healthy skin hidden beneath regrowing fur. Within seconds, the leg was healed, completely, impossibly healed. The wolf tested its weight on the leg, then looked up at Olivia. In its amber eyes, she saw not just intelligence, but something deeper, something ancient, something that recognized her, knew her in ways she couldn't comprehend. Luna's humming stopped. The baby sagged in Olivia's arms, suddenly exhausted, her eyelids drooping. Whatever she had done, whatever power she had channeled, had drained her completely. "Luna," Olivia whispered, cradling her daughter close. "What are you?" The wolf nudged Olivia's leg, then moved back to the door. Its meaning was clear. "Let me out." Now the trucks were in the yard now. Men's voices called to each other over the sound of doors slamming and equipment being unloaded. "They've got to be around here somewhere. Track says they were here last night. Check the trees. They don't usually come this close to human dwellings." Olivia took a deep breath. She carried Luna to her crib in the bedroom, tucking her in gently. The baby was already asleep, her face peaceful, giving no hint of the impossible thing she had just done. "Rest, little one," Olivia whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'll handle this." Returning to the living room, she found the wolf waiting patiently by the door. Its leg was completely healed, its posture strong and confident. It was ready to face whatever came next. Olivia knelt beside it, looking directly into those intelligent eyes. "I don't understand what's happening," she said softly. "I don't understand what Luna is or what you are, but I'm going to help you. Trust me." The wolf bumped its nose against her hand in what felt like agreement. Olivia stood, straightened her shoulders, and reached for the door. Before opening it, she whispered to the wolf, "Stay behind me. Don't let them see you until I say so." Then she stepped out onto the porch, closing the door most of the way behind her, leaving just enough space for the wolf to slip out if needed. The men, 5 of them, all in hunting gear, all carrying rifles, turned toward her in surprise. "Ma'am," one of them called, a tall man with a scraggly beard and cold eyes. "You shouldn't be out here. We're tracking a wolf pack. Dangerous predators, they've been killing livestock in the valley." Olivia crossed her arms, trying to project a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "This is private property," she said, her voice steady. "You're trespassing." The men exchanged glances. The bearded one, clearly their leader, stepped forward. "Now, ma'am, we've got permits. These wolves are a public menace. The county's put a bounty on them." "Not on my land," Olivia countered. "I know the law. Wolf hunting permits don't override private property rights. You need my permission to hunt here, and I don't give it." Another man, shorter but with a mean look in his narrow eyes, spat on the ground. "Lady, we tracked a big one right to your doorstep last night. Blood trail leads right here. You hiding something?" Olivia's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. "The only thing I'm hiding is my anger at finding armed men in my yard, frightening my baby daughter who's trying to sleep." The bearded man frowned, glancing at his companions. "Look, we don't want trouble. But these wolves, they're not normal. They're too smart, too organized. They've been picking off cattle, sheep, even a couple of hunting dogs. County says they need to be culled." "Not here," Olivia repeated firmly. "Not today. At least let us look around," the narrow-eyed man insisted. "That blood trail was probably from a deer," Olivia interrupted. "We get them all the time. Now, I'm asking you politely to leave. My husband is the forest ranger for this district, and he won't be happy to hear about armed men threatening me while he's away." This was a stretch of the truth. Marcus was a biologist who sometimes worked with the Forest Service, but these men wouldn't know that. The men shifted uncomfortably, looking to their leader for guidance. The bearded man stared at Olivia for a long moment, then shrugged. "Fine. Your land, your rules. But those wolves cross onto public land or anyone else's property. They're fair game." "I understand," Olivia said. "Now please go." They turned back toward their trucks, grumbling but complying. Olivia remained on the porch, watching as they loaded their gear. The narrow-eyed man cast one last suspicious look toward the cabin before climbing into his truck. As the engine started, Olivia heard a soft sound behind her. The wolf had slipped through the partially open door and now stood at her side, its powerful body tense but controlled. It watched the retreating hunters with alert, calculating eyes. The bearded man, about to drive away, happened to glance back. He froze, his hand going to his rifle. Son of a... But before he could raise his weapon, something extraordinary happened. From the forest edge, a chorus of howls erupted. Not just a few wolves, but dozens, their voices blending into a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very air. It was the same melody Luna had been humming, but magnified, transformed into something ancient and overwhelming. The hunters' faces went pale. Even from a distance, Olivia could see the fear in their eyes. This was no ordinary wolf pack. This was something else entirely. The wolf beside Olivia raised its head and answered the call, its voice joining the otherworldly chorus. As it did, a ripple seemed to pass through the air around it, like heat rising from summer pavement. For just a moment, so brief Olivia almost thought she'd imagined it, the wolf's form seemed to blur, to shift, to become something both more and less than wolf. The hunters saw it too. With shouts of alarm, they scrambled into their trucks and peeled away, tires spraying mud as they fled down the road. When they were gone, the howling stopped. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the gentle morning breeze. Olivia turned to the wolf beside her, her mind struggling to process what she'd just witnessed. "What are you?" she whispered. The wolf looked up at her with those intelligent amber eyes. Then it turned and trotted down the porch steps, heading toward the forest edge. At the tree line, it paused, looking back at her. The rest of the pack emerged from the trees, 20, 30 wolves of various sizes and colorings, all watching her with the same knowing intelligence. At their center stood a wolf larger than all the others, its fur as white as winter moonlight, its eyes a startling blue that reminded her of Luna's. For a moment, the white wolf held Olivia's gaze across the clearing. Then it threw back its head and howled once more, a single, pure note that seemed to bypass her ears and resonate directly in her chest. It wasn't a sound so much as a feeling, a recognition, a promise. Then, as one, the pack turned and melted back into the forest, taking their healed companion with them. Within seconds, they were gone, leaving Olivia alone on the porch, struggling to believe what she had seen. Inside the cabin, Luna began to cry, the normal, hungry cry of a baby who had just woken from a nap. Ordinary, human, as if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. Olivia went to her daughter, lifting her from the crib and holding her close. "What did you do, little one?" she whispered against Luna's soft hair. "What are you connected to?" Luna simply gurgled in response, patting Olivia's face with tiny hands that had, just an hour ago, healed a mortal wound with nothing but a song. Olivia carried her to the rocking chair and sat down, gazing out the window at the forest edge where the wolves had disappeared. The words of her grandmother came back to her again. Such children are bridges. They understand the language of the trees, the wind, the wild creatures. They remember what the rest of us have forgotten. Luna settled against her chest, content and seemingly ordinary once more. But Olivia knew that nothing would ever be ordinary again. Something ancient had awakened in these woods, something connected to her daughter in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. And somewhere in the depths of the forest, watching with patient, knowing eyes, the white wolf waited for Luna to grow into her power, for the bridge between worlds to strengthen, for the song to continue. Olivia rocked gently, humming without thinking. The same melody Luna had used, the same song the wolves had howled. It came to her naturally now, as if she'd always known it. As she hummed, Luna's eyelids grew heavy again. The baby yawned, nestling closer to her mother's warmth. Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, washing away the last traces of the wolf's blood from the porch steps, cleansing, renewing, preparing the world for what was to come. The phone rang, Marcus calling to check on them. Olivia stared at it for a long moment, wondering what she would tell him. How could she possibly explain what had happened? What was still happening? Some secrets were too big, too wild, too ancient for words. She let the phone ring unanswered and continued to rock, continued to hum, continued to watch the forest where the wolves had gone. Whatever path lay ahead for Luna, for all of them, she would face it with the same courage she had shown last night when she stepped into the storm to help a wounded wolf. The rain fell. Luna slept. And in the forest, the white wolf raised its head, listening to Olivia's distant humming, its blue eyes glowing with ancient knowledge. The bridge between worlds was growing stronger. Soon, very soon, Luna would be ready to cross it. And when she did, everything would change. 5 years later, the autumn leaves crunched beneath Olivia's boots as she followed her daughter through the forest. Luna skipped ahead, her dark curls bouncing with each step, occasionally stopping to examine a mushroom or speak softly to a bird that watched from a low branch. Not too far ahead, Olivia called, though she wasn't truly worried. These woods held no dangers for Luna, not anymore. "They're waiting for us, Mama," Luna called back, her voice musical and clear. "The council is gathering." Olivia adjusted the small pack on her shoulders and quickened her pace. 5 years had passed since that stormy night when a wounded wolf had dragged itself to their doorstep. 5 years of watching her daughter grow into abilities that defied explanation. 5 years of keeping secrets, even from Marcus, who still believed that Luna's extraordinary connection with animals was simply an unusually strong empathy. But Olivia knew better. She had seen Luna heal injured creatures with nothing but a song, had watched her daughter converse with birds and foxes and deer as easily as she spoke to human children, had observed the pack, their pack, as she'd come to think of them, watching over Luna from the forest's edge, constant guardians led by the magnificent white wolf with eyes as blue as Luna's own. Luna had named the white wolf Ilara, though she'd never explained why or how she knew the name. "She told me," was all Luna would say when asked, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They reached a clearing Olivia had never seen before, though she thought she knew these woods well. It was a perfect circle of grass surrounded by ancient oaks whose branches formed a natural ceiling overhead. Shafts of golden light broke through in places, creating a dappled, dreamlike quality to the air. And they were waiting. Not just wolves, but other creatures as well. Deer stood alongside foxes, neither prey nor predator here. Ravens perched on the shoulders of a massive brown bear. Rabbits sat unafraid beside coyotes. It was an impossible gathering, a council of wild things that should have been enemies but stood together in perfect harmony. At the center of it all sat Ilara, the white wolf, her magnificent coat gleaming in the filtered sunlight. Beside her was the gray wolf Olivia had rescued that stormy night. Luna had named him Thorn. His amber eyes met Olivia's with warm recognition. Luna stepped into the center of the circle without hesitation. The assembled animals parted to make way for her, many bowing their heads in what could only be described as reverence. "It's time, Mama," Luna said, turning to Olivia with eyes that suddenly seemed ancient in her young face. "They've been waiting for so long." "Time for what, sweetheart?" Olivia asked, though a part of her already knew the answer. "To restore the balance," Luna replied simply. "The old ways are returning, the bridges are being rebuilt." She held out her small hand. After a moment's hesitation, Olivia took it, allowing her daughter to lead her into the center of the circle. Ilara approached them, her movements regal and measured. She stopped before Luna and raised her great head, blue eyes meeting blue in silent communication. She says, "You saved Thorn that night because you remembered deep down." Luna translated, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality that wasn't quite her own. "Your grandmother passed down the old knowledge, even if you forgot it for a while. You're part of this too, Mama." Olivia felt a strange sensation wash over her, like remembering something she'd never actually forgotten. Images flashed through her mind, her grandmother teaching her the songs of the forest, herself as a small child, speaking to a fox beside a stream, Marcos drawn to her years ago by something he couldn't explain but felt in his bones. "There are others," Luna continued, still holding Olivia's hand. "Children born during the turning of the great wheel when the veil thins. Children who remember the old songs, the old ways. Children who can heal the wounds between the wild and the human." As if on cue, the animals began to make sounds. not their usual calls, but something harmonious, blending together into the melody Olivia had first heard Luna hum to the injured wolf. The song that had haunted her dreams for years. The calling song. "The world is changing, Mama," Luna said, her voice rising above the animal chorus. "It's gotten sick because people forgot how to listen, how to be part of the wild instead of separate from it. But it's not too late." Ilara and Thorn approached, flanking Luna on either side. The white wolf pressed her muzzle gently against Luna's palm, and a soft blue light began to glow where they touched. "There are others like me," Luna explained as the light spread, flowing up her arm like luminous water. "In different places, with different guardians. We're waking up now, remembering who we are, what we're meant to do." The light continued to spread, enveloping Luna completely. It should have frightened Olivia, but instead it filled her with a profound sense of rightness, of coming home. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Luna smiled, her face radiant within the blue glow. "Now we begin to heal the world, one song at a time." She began to hum, and the sound was both ancient and new, a melody that seemed to resonate with the very earth beneath their feet. The assembled animals joined in, their voices blending with Luna's in perfect harmony. Even Olivia found herself humming along, the notes coming to her as naturally as breathing. As they sang, the light emanating from Luna pulsed and expanded, spreading outward in gentle waves. Where it touched, things changed. Olivia could see it happening. Dead branches reviving with fresh green buds, withered grass springing back to life. A sickly sapling straightening and strengthening before her eyes. But it wasn't just the forest being healed. Olivia felt the light pass through her own body, washing away old pains she'd forgotten she carried, grief for her grandmother, fear for her daughter's future, the weight of secrets kept from Marcus. As these burdens lifted, she understood what Luna meant about healing the wounds between the wild and the human. The first wound to heal was within. The song reached a crescendo, and for a moment, the entire clearing was bathed in that gentle blue light. When it faded, Luna stood transformed. Not physically, but something in her eyes, her bearing, had changed. She was still Olivia's little girl, but she was also something more now, a bridge, a healer, a keeper of the old ways. "There will be more nights like the one when Thorn came to us," Luna said, scratching the gray wolf behind his ears affectionately. "More wounded creatures seeking help, more songs to sing, more healing to do." "And the hunters?" Olivia asked, remembering the men with rifles who had fled in fear 5 years ago. Luna's expression grew serious. "Some people will resist the change. They'll fear what they don't understand. But others will remember like you did. They'll join us." Ilara made a soft sound, drawing Luna's attention. The little girl listened intently, then nodded. "Ilara says it's time to tell Daddy," Luna said, turning back to Olivia. "He has songs of his own he's forgotten. He needs to remember too." Olivia thought of Marcus. Practical, scientific Marcus, who cataloged forest species and tracked migration patterns, who believed in what he could measure and observe. Yet hadn't he always possessed an almost uncanny intuition about the forest? Hadn't animals always seemed oddly comfortable around him? Perhaps Luna was right. Perhaps he too carried old knowledge buried beneath layers of modern thinking. "And what about you?" Olivia asked her daughter. "What happens to you now?" Luna took her mother's hand, her small fingers warm and reassuring. "I'm still me, Mama. I'll still build pillow forts and eat too many cookies and need you to read me stories at bedtime. But I'm also this." She gestured to the assembled creatures, to the renewed clearing, to the light that still shimmered faintly around her. I'm a bridge, and so are you in your way. The animals began to disperse, melting back into the forest in twos and threes, predator alongside prey, natural enemies now allies in something greater than their individual hungers. Only Alara and Thorn remained, watching Luna with evident pride. They'll always be with us, Luna said, noticing Olivia's gaze. Even when we can't see them, they're family now. The sun was beginning to set, painting the clearing in shades of gold and amber. It was time to head home, where Marcus would be waiting, unaware that his world was about to change forever. Are you ready? Luna asked, suddenly sounding like a normal 5-year-old again, excited for an adventure. Olivia looked at her extraordinary daughter, at the wolves who had become their guardians, at the forest that now felt more like home than ever before. She thought of the journey ahead, helping Luna navigate her growing abilities, bringing Marcus into their circle of knowledge, connecting with other bridge children and their families across the world. It wouldn't be easy. There would be those who feared what Luna represented, who would try to explain away her gifts or, worse, exploit them. The world was not always kind to those who challenged its boundaries, but looking at Luna's face, alight with purpose and joy, Olivia knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Not just their human family, but their wild one as well. I'm ready, she said, taking Luna's hand. As they turned to leave the clearing, a howl rose from the forest. A single voice at first, then joined by dozens more, swelling into a chorus that seemed to touch the very sky. It was a song of hope, of renewal, of wild things and humans finding their way back to each other after too long apart. Luna tilted her head back and answered them, her young voice clear and pure in the evening air. And Olivia, after a moment's hesitation, joined her daughter's call, adding her own voice to the ancient melody. Somewhere in the distance, a man paused on the forest path, listening. Marcus Reed stood very still, his research pack forgotten on his shoulder, as something stirred in his memory. A song he had heard once in a dream, or perhaps in a life he had lived long ago. Without knowing why, he felt tears spring to his eyes and a smile spread across his face. And, as the last light of day filtered through the autumn leaves, painting the forest in gold, a family made their way home. Woman, child, and wolves walking side by side, their shadows merging into one upon the forest floor. The bridge was open. The healing had begun. And in the space between wild and human, a new world was taking its first breath.